Hello. Sorry for the little coffee hold up here, but you gotta have your poison to do this stuff. So this is gonna be a pretty freeform little introduction to FM synthesis. And this microphone is like picking up everything in this room. I'm sorry for all the clicking and clacking, but that's like how it's gonna be. So welcome to the stream, I guess. My name is S. Some of you know me from Elektron. I've been working on some synths there, namely like this thing, the Digitone, which is an FM synth. It's what we're currently seeing on the screen here, like the display of it is being streamed. Yeah, it makes stuff. It's gonna be kind of just freeform, as I said, and I'll just go through the basics and try to like show you what FM is, what you can do with it. Sort of like from the very basics to really weird uses. Like the stuff I played now comes completely from the Digitone, and it's sort of almost a weirder way of using it than the classic. And we're gonna get to that part as well, like how eventually it came to that or whatever. And since it is like very off the cuff and sort of free from this, so I'll try to keep an eye on the chats and just shoot any questions at any time, and I'll try to answer them. And let me know if you want me to go over something again, and stuff like that. And please also write if anything sounds weird, or if there anything, if something's wrong, please just let me know, and I'll try and fix this. And hello, everyone. So many both familiar and unknown faces. Very nice. So, I'm gonna see if I can maneuver this cool setup I got going. Let's not open that. Let's open this. So, for those who are completely new to FM, I think I was just gonna go through like what it is. Sounds good? Looking good? Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, so FM is a type of synthesis, and what that means is it's a way of generating audio, basically, or like a technical way of generating some type of sound electronically. It could be analog, it could be digital. The main point of it is that it's a way to use, like, in every synthesizer you have a tone generator and some dynamic control, meaning like the volume of stuff, and like the typical mini Moog. Let's just I'm doing like the Google presentation thing, I'm sorry, but the typical mini Moog, as I guess like most of you know about, is called subtractive synth. So that has like a very sharp waveform. And maybe I can even like demo that really quick. It has like a typically sharp waveform. So this is a soft one. That would be a sharp waveform, and you can roll that off with a filter, which sounds like that. And that's like your very like classic synth paradigm called subtractive, but and that's analog typically, or started out as it. And then in like 60s, 70s, people started playing around with like different ways of coming up with timbres. Like Buchla did his easel, Don Buchla, who was active in San Francisco and etc. He did his easel, which is a synth that doesn't really take a subtractive approach, and more kind of adds on top of stuff. And that's usually called additive, but the Buchla easel is more just like different ways of like wave folding, and we're not going to go into that, but it's kind of related to FM in a way. It's anyway adding to a kind of softer timbre from beginning, like just a sine wave. And then in the 70s, this guy called John Chowning, shout out, do my tats tie into this? Yes. This one is subtractive, and this one is FM. So John Chowning, who is a very nice man, I might add, is more of an artist person, but wrote a lot of sort of research papers about sound, and one of his most famous works that led to these types of synthesizers is called generating John Chowning generating complex spectra with something. The synthesis of complex spectra by means of frequency modulation, just simple stuff like that. But that sort of explores FM from a more modular synth direction. So most of this is from the beginning analog. This is from 1973, the original paper, and there he explores the notion of, instead of rolling off a complex waveform, you're generating a complex waveform by adding several oscillators together. And this is a whole lot of stuff. Honestly, I'm not the most technical person, to be quite honest. I'm much more I'm much more practical, which I think. Also, I might be wrong sometimes if I say certain too technical things. Don't trust that too much. I come from a much more exploring stuff and figure it out myself, and then making something out of that, and that's sort of how I'm going to explain this as well. Just more visually letting you know what's going on, and hopefully you can get a good grasp of how FM works by that. But this paper is of course super nerdy. It's a fun read, sort of as far as papers go, but it's definitely very involved in terms of technicalities and stuff. But you can say, so yeah, here we have John again. John and the Digitone. He did send a really nice email about that. He's a really nice person. So all the love and shout outs to him. I hope he's staying home and keeping safe in these weird ass times. Again, this is a sine wave, exactly the same as we were seeing on the screen right now. And this is just a graphing thing online, and I'm going to show a little bit how this works. So so we begin with a sine wave, and I just realized I need to talk about how FM isn't really FM. I need to talk more about John Chowning and Yamaha, I feel before I get into this. Sorry. Just a teaser. Okay, so John Chowning wrote this paper and started talking to Yamaha, this big synth manufacturer in Japan, or I guess they make boat motors as well, but you gotta do what you gotta do. So they did the DX7, which is okay, this isn't the first FM synth, but it's the first one that was affordable to people. It was still expensive, really expensive, but at that time, studios could afford stuff. Basically, this is the first successful digital instrument released. I think, I'm pretty sure. If you don't count the Fairlight, whatever. So this one took FM and made it a bit more accessible or whatever. And this used a lot of Chowning's findings in terms of how you use these different oscillators in pairs, and how you more in again a practical way, or from a musician's mindset, how does that tie into timbre and just sound design overall. What's interesting about it is so it's kind of brutal. It's just a bunch of membrane buttons and a teeny tiny display. and it's kind of known for being horrible to program. It doesn't help that FM is like hard to understand from the beginning, but you're like using a calculator to figure it out at the same time. But Yamaha were really smart about this. They saw frequency modulation and figured like, oh, that's kind of computationally expensive. I guess this is just my extrapolation, but they instead went for an implementation called phase modulation. Phase as in phase modulation. Yes, basically, it's very, very close to FM. It's very close, but it's just using some smart implementation to kind of make it both computationally less expensive, because like the digital stuff back then was kind of rough, and it came with some really cool benefits like being able to do feedback, and I'll delve into that more later, but yeah. And after that one, they did like a whole line of FM stuff, because it kind of like tied into the whole 80s music, synthwave stuff and everything, and became a legendary instrument. And Yamaha made like 500 FM stuff, and yeah, it's all quite good. So let's again look at the waveform. So just for reference, the sine wave. So this is a sine wave. It's like the most basic waveform, and I think I still have the spectrum going. Yeah, cool. So as you can see, when I press this button on my Digitone, I know it's a little bit hard to see, like whatever, but as I press different keys, you can see how the spectrum, the little lines there go up, up, up. And it's just one line at a time. And that's because sine wave is typically pure. It kind of occupies one frequency range, one harmonic. Like one sine wave is one harmonic. If you then, for example, distort the sine wave, we're adding harmonics on top of it. It becomes more of a square shape. And this is sort of the basis of everything. You want to add harmonics to the very simple sine wave. And to do that with FM, we combine two oscillators known as operators, and I'll go into that more later, to pure like ocean waves or the moon. A bit of both. So, yeah, basically we have a sine wave and we're modulating its phase, which means that it's going to stay the same like position at all times, depending. But when so the cyan here is sort of the what comes out at the end. And as I turn up the frequency, the modulation, you can see how that starts to look like more coming towards a saw wave. I'll try to maybe follow on like. And we can also have a look at, this is the original, and here we have the modulating wave. So the original is orange, the modulating is magenta, and the resulting, as it's called, I think, in some smart academic term, is the cyan. And as I increase this over 1, we start seeing that the modulating wave has a much higher amplitude than the others. And amplitude just means like its vertical size. And as it gets really, really big, we start seeing how this waveform becomes more and more complex, and it's basically just folding into itself, you can say, sort of. You're basically imparting that that wave into the other one. So the first one is kind of weird in how it becomes this folding pattern, and it sounds sort of. Yeah. And where it starts to get kind of interesting is, let's see, I'll need to know how this. Well, how I get the Digitone to the someone asked me how I got the Digitone GUI onto the stream here, and this is actually an in-house tool at Elektron. So it's what we use to take screenshots. Hopefully, I've been like trying to get us to like release some version for like streamers and everything, so like other people can do this. But it's kind of shaky and weird right now, so I'm kind of just hacking it together. But what's interesting, or where it gets kind of really crazy and really deep, is as you change, if we put this to like 2.5 or something in volume, and we'll just look at the Cyan one. This here, R equals 1. This is the ratio. So both of these operators or oscillators, let's call them operators from now on, they have the same input frequency, meaning like hertz. So for example, like I think yeah, that's called like a reference A. It's 440 hertz. I don't know if it was whatever. I'm not that gifted, but they're both at the same frequency now, which means that they have the same period. The wave is the same length in horizontal here. But when we change the ratio, and the ratio is just a multiplicator of the input frequency, and the input frequency is typically like a note. So whatever you play on your keyboard, and then we can set a multiplier on that. So if I start turning this, the timbre changes completely. And if we set the ratio to 2 and modulate, you can again take a look at the modulating one. You can see that it's twice. It has twice as many periods on one cyan one. And what's happening when we modulate with this pattern, the 1 to 2 modulation ratio, is that we start seeing a sort of square-ish waveform. And sounds something like that. And what's happening is that a square waveform is using like odd harmonics, and I'm gonna quickly flip to this. This is a little additive synthesis generator, and this is another like synthesis paradigm that it's completely deep, but we can use it kind of quickly to illustrate how harmonics work, because that's kind of what we're working with when we're doing ratios. Like the ratios aren't correlating to any specific note or frequency, they're just multipliers of whatever we feed into this oscillator. So if you multiply it by 2, it will be an octave, but 3 will be off, but it's harmonically still correct. It will sort of be one with the timbre because it's harmonics. So if I pull these sliders, you're mixing 2 sine waves, or mixing harmonics, and harmonics are sort of the same thing as we introduced with the distortion, but this is a bit more direct way with sine waves. And if we take a look at the square here, you're noticing that it's only the odd harmonics that are enabled. So essentially, that's sort of what's happening with this thing here. And as we start increasing it, it gets into this weird, wild territory. And again, talking about phase, as we see on this one, what phase is basically where the waveform starts. And if I pull this, we can see a phase offset. And this also has like dramatic impact on the sound in terms of when you start modulating stuff. For example, if we invert the modulation, we basically invert the phase. And when we do this with this pattern, like a 1 to 2 ratio, we get like a triangle wave. And the reason for that is because a triangle wave has the same harmonics, odd harmonics, as a square wave, but they're inverted from the base. So it's a bunch of cool voodoo math into all of this. But yeah, this is sort of the most simple setup of FM, with just 2 operators. And I have a max patch we're going to go through, which we can fiddle with a bit, and probably will upload that somewhere or if anyone's interested. It's just very simple, but basically this is the basic setup. And it's very abstract so far, but as we start like playing around with these parameters in like a more something that makes more sound, it will be kind of more apparent that it can do kind of crazy things only at this basic level. But essentially it's about combining two waveforms, and we're gonna get into how it works with the phase and what that means and how Yamaha implemented that, because it's kind of interesting. Do you want me to explain something else about these plots, the waveforms, or should we move over to like the max patch example and take a look at that? It also has waveforms, if anyone. Max patch, please. All right, let's do it. I would go to the max patch. Okay, cool, we're doing it. All right, here is a quite basic FM max patch. And for those that don't know what max is, it's often referred to as Max MSP, and it's a software for making your own kind of little sound stuff, and it does like video, and it's like multimedia modular software where you can just program your own stuff and do a lot of crazy things. I use it in work to prototype stuff, and the Digitone, for example, was prototyped in Max first, just to kind of check if the ideas were sound or good, or kind of worked. You can patch along, but this is more to kind of yes, also the model cycles was made in Max, but that was actually completely made in Max first to like a working state, and then we translated that. Yeah, and yeah, Pure Data is a really good alternative to this. And if you want to explore these type of softwares free, I mean, Max has a 30-day trial, which is kind of cool to just mess around with, but and you can load any patches that someone else has made, I think, and play around with them as more of a sound tool. But Pure Data is an open source free version that's really good. I used to use that a lot, and it has some stuff that are better than Max, I think, in some ways. It's definitely less resource heavy, which is great for computers that are kind of slow. But I think Max has a really good community, which means that if you get stuck, which I always get, you can like find someone who's already solved stuff for you and figure it out. Max was used just as a prototyping tool for Digitone and cycles. It more just trying out ideas, trying out mappings, like what happens when I turn a certain encoder or whatever. Yeah. Max is different from Pure Data in that it is closed source and paid software, and it deals in a lot more domains. It's sort of wider and has a bit more widespread use. What's this? Oh, apparently we're doing an intro to Pure Data next week. I'm hearing from the boss. So next week, Pure Data, hopefully. I kind of wanted to do Pure Data, but I can't remember any of it right now, so it was kind of too short. I'm sorry about that. But yeah, so this patch, again, we have a sine wave. Now we have the same parameters as we had before, the ratio, the amount, stuff like that. And as you can see, the waveform is kind of shaky, and it just kind of freaks out a little bit when it gets a lot of modulation. And how this works, we're gonna dig into Gen a little bit, like the DSP part of it. Now I'm just gonna explain how it works on a technical level. So this is called Gen. It's a thing in Max where you can just do digital sound signal processing a bit closer to the core, so to speak. And this is like how this very basic FM patch looks like. So we have our first input, and that's the frequency. So for example, 440 Hertz is the reference A used in concert pitch, I guess. That's our input number one. And what that goes into a phase generator. And what a phase generator does is basically it makes just a ramp. It counts from this one, it comes from something to 0 and then back again. So it just constantly has this ramp motion. If you would connect that straight out, it would sound like a saw wave, basically. But what it's doing in this patch is that it's reading from a lookup table. And a lookup table is what we're seeing down here, this sine wave. And essentially, that's like a list of data, just like from 0 to 1, a waveform. Basically, when you have a wave file, a sample, or anything, it's just a bunch of numbers of amplitudes. So the sine wave is that it's extremely short in duration. It would just sound like a click if you heard it as a sample. But what the lookup oscillator is doing is that it's looping through this waveform via the sample points. It has the data, basically. And that's also what's used in wavetable synths, as I'm sure many of you know what that is. Hopefully, if not, let me know. I'm basically just reading that waveform over and over again. But what we can do is that we can disrupt the way it reads that. So instead of reading it in a straight line like that, we can change the trajectory of that line, which means that the way the waveform is read is like it starts to move in a different pattern, and what we're hearing of the result is the FM wave, basically. So imagine that, imagine that you're reading through this sine wave from point A to B just over and over again. But instead of doing like this motion just going straight, you can imagine that it's like starting reading in a different pattern, and that generates this weird waveform. It's a bit abstract still, but not sure how to explain it best. And then we basically just have the output. So the modulation input here, you add to the phaser output, and that creates the modulation. And the second little block of stuff here is called the modulator. So in FM, there's a lot of terms being used, and the reason because of that is sort of it's just basically terminology to make things a bit more clear in terms of interface. So the carrier is usually what's referred to as the thing you're modulating, and the modulator is what's modulating it. And both of them are referred to as operators. And typically operators have envelopes, that means dynamic control, attached to them, but in this patch it's just like droning on and on. And the second block has a bit more stuff to it, and that's feedback, and which means that we take the output from the oscillator itself and feeds it back to it. And that can be used in a lot of cool ways, and is really what makes FM extremely versatile. You can make something sound sharp or like noisy and chaotic. So let's have a look at that. Just try dragging the wrong window. And it kind of spasses out quickly, where you can make it turn into noise if you're overmodulating, because essentially it just starts reading everything. You know, it reads itself so much that it just kind of goes into a chaotic state. So yeah, essentially it's only noise, but we can lower the mod amount, and we basically just have a very noisy sine wave. and we can also change the mod ratio at this point. Maybe. Hello. No. Let me see. Yeah, I don't know. Oh, this patch is a bit janky. Sorry. Yeah. So again, we can change the mod ratio, and by doing that in combination with the feedback, we can get like these basic waveforms like square, saw, and maybe triangle. No. The reset face button, as you can see, if I turn the mod ratio kind of crazy and then go back to 1, I get some kind of odd waveform. This is because the phase of the two oscillators doesn't align anymore. And what happens then is that we get different timbres depending on the phase relationships of the two operators, and we're gonna delve into that a bit more, because that's when stuff gets really freaky, because you can do things with just by offsetting the phase and changing when things begin. You can actually dramatically change the resulting tone. As I touched upon before with the triangular modulation, doing this, inverting the phase, is, for example, something you could do by having the second oscillator start at this point. Like the white one would be the second one, essentially being inverted. And by doing some really crazy tricks, we can use that to do like triangle waves and all kinds of pulse width modulation. We'll get into that. And in Max, I'm just sending a click to this input of the phaser, which as soon as it gets a non-zero value, it resets the phase to 0, and that resets both of these phasers. Yes. This workshop will be uploaded later, yes. So by using all of these methods, we can introduce really complex spectra, because typically you would have like more than 2 operators. Like the most basic FM synth is typically 3 operators, and usually it's using something called algorithms, and this is from the Digitone manual, just because that's the one like nice vector graphic I could find. And this is from the manual, and as you can see, these are like different routings of the operators. And why you do this is because depending on how you connect things in different series in different ways, you can get really crazy different tones. Like, for example, now we're doing just 2 operator FM, but just one to the other, and we get like one waveform out of that. But you could also do like 4 of them in a series, like this long one, the one and the 4th one here. And then you just do the same thing with like times. And that's kind of where it gets confusing, because when you have all of those like frequency relationships and modulation level and everything like that, it kind of gets wild. And on that DX7 calculator interface, it sort of gets crazier. Yeah, I think I should probably show some more on the Digitone, because it's kind of easy to like you can do sounds like where this is like this type of algorithm, and the reason for it being exactly that one is like, that's a whole other story. But basically here we have like 4 operators, and you can, they're combined in a certain way, and that leads to a certain sound design result. And it's not really so much about a certain type to use for a certain sound. Well, in some cases, yes, but I think mostly you can just kind of explore. And I think it's nice to go into this and think like, okay, I got like this type of algorithm. That means I can use this A here to introduce this tone. And maybe I want like something slightly more chaotic with the other ones. If I just like turn them to random something. So now the topmost slider here, the A level, controls just the A operator, which is just 1. And this one is doing the sort of more crazier stuff. And when we combine them, you get like another layer of control basically. And you can combine this to make like just a crazy amount of sounds, like just a square wave, or like a bell, something, some like cowbell, claps, some rim shots, some like hi-hats, snare drums, bass drums, everything. And the reason why FM has this sort of really wide use case is just because like having control of the phase and having these many oscillators in the system makes it really powerful. You get a lot of control over everything, and you can really carve stuff out. And I think the best way to learn it is to just go like take like this algorithm and just listen to the A and C here, for example. See what they're doing. Like, okay, right now it's just doing like the square thing. Okay, then we can add, maybe I'll add like one that's set to a ratio of 3 on top of it. Yeah. That creates another timbre. So to explore it in like iterations, I think is the best way to first listen to what it does with only 2 operators, and then introduce the third one, and then kind of see where that goes. I do not recognize the algorithm when I hear it, unless it's something like super specific. But the algorithm, I don't think that's where you should get most caught up, because that's just a very specific way of routing. I think sound design, sometimes it's more important about like how you use envelopes, like, you know, this sound sounds in one way when it's like that, and it's like so much more to it than just it's not just timbre all the time, or like the algorithms. I think you should approach them more as like something to explore, that rather than like that one is good for bass, that one is good for strings. It's more just like load that up, see what it does, etc. I think let's see, we're again, to come back to like how to explore this. There's a really good free FM plugin called Dext, which is a clone of the DX7, more or less, and it's free. It's probably really loud, and it's quite good. The interface is a lot more involved. Unfortunately, it's a bit tougher to use, but like you got all your algorithms and all the oscillators you could want. It has a lot more oscillators than the OP one. The GUI is a bit lackluster, yes. I wish there was something a bit simpler free. Yeah. I have some really weird stuff also we could talk about. I'm gonna try and move this over a bit. See. Yeah, Dext is really good. I really recommend. Come on, I really recommend using it. And it has a sort of nice specific tone to it, which a lot of people like. The whole DX7, a bit more lo-fi maybe, but like in a good way. So this weird. Oh no. This patch does some really weird stuff with FM. So when I said before, like you can use the phase in really strange ways. So for example, we can do like a triangle. Oh, I'm sorry. Jeez. No. Yes. Yeah. So yeah. What? Sorry, just live patching like an idiot. So yeah, for example, we can do a triangle, and this is again by same modulation, the 1:2 ratio as we saw on the square wave, but inverted, and we get this triangle. And by applying feedback, but also inverted, we get a sharp triangle. So that's kind of the beauty of feedback. You can use that and like see it as like chiseling stuff into like a pointy version. We can make a sawtooth, also nice and sharp. We can make a square wave, more pulse, like analog-ish. Maybe not so analog. We can do pulse width modulation, actual pulse width modulation. And that's kind of a weird trick. So, so basically how this works is you have like, you use 3 operators. Let's see if I can get this weird patch on stream. Let me just make a new window. Quick. It's one of these PWM. So basically we have, and this is just, ignore the triangle there, that's just modulation. So basically we're phase shifting. We have 2 modulators. One of the modulators is doing basically just a square wave, and the other one is creating a gap in that square wave by negating its modulation with the same phase pattern. And then, so basically you have to do a lot of like negative tricks and stuff, and then you get this like freaky PWM stuff. So yeah, hit me up, Nick Bat. I got your PWM. I did this 909 waveform. It's kind of, it's lame when you don't hear it through an envelope, but it replicates the 909 oscillator nicely because it has this asymmetric sine wave. And that one was like so crazy to do. It's one of these, yeah, it's like a million weird applications. And that's kind of what's really crazy about FM is like you can really dig that deep into stuff, and you can go that route, but I think it's also super beautiful to just do stuff with 2 operators. Like, I don't know how many of you heard like the stuff I was playing at the beginning of this, But let's bring the Digitone back. The champion returns. It was kind of noisy, and the way you use that is to distort. Like, it gets really interesting when you distort things and like stuff like that. But you can also like with all this control and like being able to do these raw waveforms with the Digitone as well. You can do like this kind of shape into more a chiptune sound, for example. Let me just see. This can't be done on the Digitone. No, the phase tricks can't be done because it's like so specific. It's like hard to map for that. The cycles has more tricks like that because of like the set machines, but the Digitone being more open-ended, it was kind of hard to squeeze that in. The parameter the third operator is modulating is just the depth. Yeah, so I have like some weird like this sound right here, for example, is just like introducing noise a little bit and like modulating. And like the whole so we were like doing a typical chiptune thing, which is something I like a lot. Can introduce some crazy bass. Which is yeah, it is a bit very reflex. Someone referenced the cut the mid-range, drop the bass track. Thanks. Yeah, can I briefly explain the way feedback works again? Yes. Let's do it on the Digitone. Is that all right? Like, does that make sense? I guess you can see the spectra. It's kind of fine. Yeah, so feedback. Let's listen to just an isolated oscillator here. So this parameter, I'm turning here, the triangle-ish looking thing, or the rhombus or whatever it is, that's feedback. And as we increase that, it gets sharper. And as I said, it's sort of the wave being fed back into itself. Like, you can say it kind of accentuates its own pattern to a point where it gets more linear, basically, because it's just the phase relationship is just returning until it's like this weird peak. And as you push it more and more, it gets chaotic and noise is sort of introduced. And this can be used in like so many different cool creative ways. If we just use this as part of, see now I turn to another algorithm. These two B's here, the one on the top has the little feedback thing. The little line there means that it's connected to itself. It modulates the second one now, but still the same like noisy thing as before. So basically we can kind of very subtly mix that in by just a little bit. We get this kind of really we can also start introducing like detuning to get these drifts and stuff, and that's also something that's super nice. You can get these crazy, interesting and if we pull it back a lot, BB, If you pull it back a lot, get like a sort of drifting saw wave. And we can of course exaggerate that a lot. So this is without feedback. This is with. Basically just gets sharper and sharper until it gets into a chaotic state and it becomes sort of noisy. But you can still sort of hear the tonality always, unless you push it like to crazy freaking territories. And something I should have talked about more is drifting stuff. Because when you introduce this drifting and doing like super inharmonic stuff, you get all these inharmonicities in the waveform, and it kind of, you can view it as that it's like doing little patterns and drifting, and that's kind of what you're hearing as well. Like some of these bass sounds, for example, is using some like phase stuff. That one is basically just aligning things and then detuning them, so you have this little subtle drift. And that's kind of, things like that you can spend like a lifetime on tweaking, but it's fun. It's like the Digitone is made to be more explorative. Something like Dext is a bit more cerebral. I wish there was like a soft, cheaper, like a free VST that was a bit more easy. Maybe I'll like make a Max for Live thing. If anyone uses Ableton, I can do like a super simple little FM thing, which will kind of suck, but maybe be a bit easier to explore at least. So hit me up. Can I control that parameter with MIDI? Yeah, yes, and LFOs and everything. Yeah, everything is MIDI control basically. And I'm running out of time. This went by really quickly, but I kind of have to go. Yes, Ableton Operator is really good. It was really inspirational to me. Use that, it's great, but it only comes with Live Suite, I think. Okay, I'll try and make a Max for Live device, because like I'm gonna be home like everyone else anyway and just like be bored. So yes, see that as my gift in all this crazy stuff. I will do it. And yeah, you're welcome, Ville. Very nice to have you on. Yeah, another chiptune thing. Yeah, I have to go. But thanks for joining. Now it's something else, I think. Oh, sorry, it's Time Cop. Yes. Who is playing on the Model Cycles, by the way, if I'm not mistaken. And that's going to be awesome. So, yeah. See you around. Thanks you for joining. Yeah. We'll see about updates. I can't promise anything. I will do more streams. Yes, probably. Yeah. Okay. It is recorded. Yes. Bye.